Welcome to Casual Coder Season 2.
Woo!
I have Kyle, Chandler,
Hello.
Alex, and I'm Quentin. So, I kind of wanted to get a little theoretical today.
Philosophical, maybe
Yeah.
is a good word.
Yeah, philosophical, kind of a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Have you guys ever actually stopped to think about how crazy fast the world changed? More like, that's very vague, tech progression-wise. For instance, like for travel, the most advanced thing was like a chariot or a stagecoach.
We're going way back.
Way back.
Like horses?
Horses until I want to
feet?
say and boats until about like midway through the 1800s, and then you had trains, and then less than 100 years later we put a person on the moon. Have you guys ever actually like stopped to think about how like crazy that is to think about?
The Industrial Revolution
All
like
the time.
accelerated us so fast.
Yeah.
It does make me very glad that I was born now and not in the 50s like my dad.
I feel like our quality of life is just so vastly different between
yeah.
the previous
It's
generations
still
and
going
ours.
up.
Absolutely, yeah. But we don't even like recognize it. Like I feel like almost every day on a day-to-day, like we don't think about how things used to be.
Right.
Things used to be very like, kind of sketchy. So
Yeah.
like, we get to eat like kings did of years past.
Sure.
Every day.
Because one thing that I always thought of too was like a cell phone, something that probably about 100 years ago, about 100 years ago, wasn't even thought of. But they
This
thought
is
of
black magic, and you'd be burnt
Yeah.
if you showed
Yeah.
this to anyone.
Witch.
Honestly, like 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, yeah. And then you have FaceTime. You can access the internet, access any sort of bit of information that has ever been accessed throughout human history, for the most part. And it's just crazy to me to think, what's some things that we might have thought of, like self-heating drawers.
Oh God, that project.
Throwback.
Throwback, yeah.
Wow.
Self-heating drawers.
Wintertime.
Huh?
Said it being wintertime. Should bring it back.
Yeah. What are some things that you guys sort of think of that I guess you think might happen the next 40, 50 years from now?
Moving
No,
forward.
you shut up. I know exactly what you're gonna say. You're gonna talk about AI again. No.
I'll go last. Alex, what do you think?
Well, I guess you just put me on the spot. It's really hard to predict the future, but I can definitely tell you based on what I've seen from the things that I work with, one of the things I have that kind of makes me really appreciate what we have now in the world of technology and computers is I just recently acquired a 1993, 1994 vintage PC, which is just an ugly beige box, but it does work. It still runs, and I cannot believe it does. Because when I think about how advanced it probably was for the time, like way better than all these IBM machines that take up a whole room or whatever, but it didn't even have like USB ports on the front of it. Like nobody used flash memory back then. It was floppies and CDs. So I look at that and I'm just like, well, obviously we have no idea where it's going from here, but we'd like to think it's going to get a lot better and like a lot more density of information, a lot faster response times for everything. It's definitely going to be, I think it's going to keep going in the technology world, like how, whatever it is, Moore's law keeps saying everything's going to exponentially grow. I see that keeping going for a while. Maybe still in our lifetimes. I don't know. I know people think there's going to be a ceiling at some
From
point.
like a processor standpoint?
Just power in general. Yeah. Like computers, machines, what they can do. Even in, like when you think about your phone, something that fits in your pocket, your watch, I think everything's going to keep getting smarter and smarter and more dense. And I'm okay with that. I think it's going to be pretty good from the consumer side of things, as long as you can afford it.
Speaking of processors and stuff, I kind of want to dig in. Do you know what the hardware inside of the beige box is?
Yes, I do. I do actually have a whole breakdown of it, but just offhand, I can tell you it's an Intel. The CPUs actually were kind of weirdly labeled back in the day. They used to be in models, families, and steppings. So if you look in, this is one thing I really appreciate is software. Windows 98 does not have a task manager. As much as you love task manager, that program doesn't exist in 98. It doesn't have device manager like we have. Sometimes I appreciate how some of these like Windows programs and shortcuts I've been using have been around forever. It wasn't in Windows 98. Windows 2000 is when a lot of that stuff was added in. So when you go into their like very stripped down device profile manager, you can see it's just called an Intel Family 4, like Model 6, Stepping 3, which if you look online basically means it's a Pentium. It's a Pentium 3. But there were a lot of different Pentiums back in the day. And on the chip, that like the die itself, it actually says Celeron. 128M, which doesn't tell you anything really about it. But yeah, it's about a 700 megahertz processor, Pentium 3
And back
style.
when megahertz was like
Yeah.
the top end. Like
Millions of hertz, man. That's crazy.
How many cores? How many threads?
one.
What? Yeah. What's a core? Yeah.
Cores and threads were not a concept until like the mid 2000s.
But you know what I love about it? I still hit Windows key R and it opens up the run dialog. I still hit Windows key E and it opens up the Explorer. And I'm just like, oh, I can't believe these shortcuts have existed for longer than I've been alive. You know, like it's crazy. Does warm me up. You know, it still can't connect to the internet, no, because there's no onboard Ethernet. So
And also, if you do, it'll probably just implode because of
yeah,
all the-
I'm scared to do it, but I do have a PCI Ethernet card that I can put in it, but I don't have the driver for it. So I can't get it to
and you
work
needed
yet.
CDs back then to get the drivers.
Yep, so I'm going to have to see if I can't find a driver for it, but maybe someday I'll connect it to the
Old
internet.
10 megabit top of the line wireless.
Hey,
that
it's
was-
10100, you know.
10100.
Apparently.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't like predicting the future of tech because everyone has a million different predictions and only one of them is right.
They're always wrong. Yeah, that's
They're
the
always
biggest
wrong,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, we already know, like, obviously, I know Kyle's going to get in a tangent about AI, so I think AI is going to be a big deal. I really do. But I really think that we're going to move more, when it comes to, like, processors and, like, more hardware-related things, I think we're going to move into more, like, instead of trying to go for power, we're going to go for efficiency. We're going to go for, like you said, how much power can we put into the smartphone in your pocket? How much power can we stuff into a watch? Instead of more power is more better. And that's going to move over to the enterprise. That's going to be more like, all right, the data centers are more powerful, but that trickles down into the consumer. Instead of getting more powerful consumer hardware, you get more efficient hardware that's smaller that maybe, yeah, this is just as powerful as last year, but it uses half the power, uses a quarter of the power. It now fits in your pocket. That's where I think that is going. That's the direction we're going in. And to that vein, I think ARM is the future of like home computing. I'm sorry, Apple's converted me. Hot take: ARM is the future.
Would you
Interesting.
consider Apple Silicon ARM?
Apple Silicon is ARM.
Is it based
is
on
ARM?
ARM?
No, it is based on ARM for
know
sure.
that.
What
It
is the architecture?
it is ARM 64. It is ARM architecture. It just has
ARC64 ARM?
A
Or is it ARM
yeah,
V7L
AR64.
or whatever?
Yes, no. Yes, Apple's M1 chips are ARM 64. AR64. However,
I didn't know that.
However, they have a bunch of custom instructions
Yeah.
that only work on the Apple
Apple moment.
which is like, but most of those instructions are like x86 carryovers, so that way x86 software will work on them.
Weird.
So that way they can have like Rosetta, which is their x86 compatibility layer that lets you run old Mac apps on the newer Macs. Feels like it's native. It's so fast. Like honestly, when I transitioned over to Mac, I downloaded a few Intel, which is what they call the old Mac, which were based on Intel processors. Some older programs, I couldn't tell that they weren't running natively. I could not tell that they were emulated. They were that fast.
Impressive.
Yeah. The first time I ever touched M1 hardware was actually the day I met Kyle. Our friend Cam invited me to Panera to meet Kyle, but the first thing he did is like, I just got the new M1 Mac, and I want to show you this. I'm so impressed. And me and Cam for the first hour were just dicking around with the MacBook. And he's like, there's no ARM apps available, but it doesn't matter. Everything is so fast that it's basically native. Because he was running Firefox, and he still does. But the Firefox that he was running the Intel Firefox. It wasn't running the ARM Firefox. And you couldn't tell. Quentin, you actually have a computer. Your one Windows tablet, that was running ARM. It was Windows for ARM.
Yeah, we still have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't use it, but my folks do.
Yeah.
But
My
it actually-
experience with Windows for ARM was very bad.
It actually was really good.
Was it good?
Yeah, it actually
Okay,
worked
that's
really
good.
well. It was a Samsung Galaxy Tab or something.
Which I thought it was very funny.
I forget
'cause
exactly what it was.
At
I know
the
it was
time-
Samsung.
It was Samsung. It had a Qualcomm processor in it. I know for a fact because it had the exact same chip as my Pixel 2.
Wow.
Yeah. It was running Windows.
I can't believe that.
Like, holy shit, it's running Windows?
Was
What?
it one of those weird embedded flavors of Windows, or was it like stock
No,
Windows?
it was full fat Windows 10.
It has, I think, an ARM build, but a lot of the software doesn't work on it though.
Oh.
Yeah, they have specific like builds of Chrome and specific builds of
Hmm.
Firefox and like all the apps you would normally use.
So you know how on like most websites you go to them and like you double click like, oh, Windows download, like almost
wouldn't
none
work.
of those work.
Huh.
At least when I was using it. Maybe it's better
Because
now.
it wouldn't be x86 architecture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them did. I noticed that Microsoft is also working on their own emulation layer for ARM stuff, and it's getting better. But Apple, nothing holds a candle to Apple's. Apple's is better.
Oh, okay.
The biggest thing that you got
That
with
is
it
not
was-
a hot take, by the way. Like everyone will tell you that.
All right.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I remember getting for it was people say like power efficiency. What does that even mean? But like
Yeah.
your battery life goes way longer because there's both performance cores and efficiency cores, right? And in the new Apple
Okay.
architecture, and the performance cores are truly performance cores. And like web browsing, just normally browsing the web, counts as efficiency, not performance.
Huh.
Performance is like video editing or like
Compiling
rendering a 3D
code.
model or
Okay.
compiling code. But like when you're just normally browsing the web, like
It uses no battery,
like
Wow.
Yeah.
like
What-
none.
What's your battery life in whatever your Mac you're talking about? What-
Days.
Days. Really?
Days.
That surprises
Yeah,
me.
it does days. And Quentin, have you had that experience with your MacBook as well?
Yeah, and my phone will last me about a day and a half.
Yeah, and and even Intel is copying Apple now with the newer chips. Will actually have efficiency cores in them as well, not just performance cores. AMD is the only company that isn't doing that because AMD is betting that we can make our performance cores efficient enough that no one's going to care.
Okay.
And I hope AMD is making a good bet because they're like the only competition Intel has right now, the consumer x86 space. And I don't even put Apple in like the same category for consumer computing. Apple is its own thing. Even though I'm Apple soy myself.
Yeah,
I admit
yeah.
that. But yeah, like the newer Intel chips, they're built on the same a similar architecture to where there'll be like it'll be a 24 core chip. 16 of those cores, or no, 24 threads. Sorry, 8 of those cores will be hyper-threaded performance cores. So they'll have 2 threads each, and then 8 of them will be efficiency cores that are not hyper-threaded, that are like the equivalent of like Intel Atom, like super low power chip like cores. But Windows and Linux now are smart enough to say, all right, when you're browsing the web and doing lightweight tasks, put it on the more efficient efficiency cores. When you're trying to game or when you're trying to compile code, well, when you're trying to compile code, use all of them. Doesn't matter
Yeah,
what
right.
it is, just use all of them.
use all the cores.
But when you're gaming, it'll put on the performance
Paid
cores
for the whole
automatically.
PC. I'm going to use the whole
Right.
PC.
That's him with Chrome tabs. And
100%.
Yeah.
you paid for the RAM, you're going to use the RAM.
100%.
That's right.
Otherwise,
yeah.
it's not in use.
Wasted space.
Paid for the whole speedometer. I'm going to use the whole speedometer.
It's a little dangerous, but that's fun.
I'm
Can't condone
hoping
that.
the biggest thing for the future that I'm like, I don't have any hope on is that I really think NVIDIA is going to fuck over consumers.
Oh man, why
In
is
what
that?
way?
What way? Have you seen how much graphics cards are now?
Yeah, what was that? The most recent release was still going to be like over $1,000.
No, the most recent release finally brought it back down to just a hair on like $9.99.
So with taxes, it's still over $1,000. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's not even like a completely new graphics card. It's last year's graphics cards, slightly tuned better and just slash the price. Just like by a little bit. That's it. That's the only difference.
I guess the days of me when I first built my PC now 8 years ago, paying $250 for a good enough graphics card. That
You can still find a good enough graphics card for $250. It's not AIM. It's not.
well, it's going to be
NVIDIA.
used too. This was a
It's
new
not-
card.
yeah, it's not going to be used. New cards. I think the cheapest new cards that you can get that are worth buying are like in the $300 to $400 range.
Oh, okay. I guess I would have guessed like 700 or 800. So that's a
No,
little
but-
comforting to know. But still, that's half the cost of a PC right there.
Yeah, but I'm also like, if I'm gonna build a custom computer, I want power. If I wanted just something that could play games, I'd use my Steam Deck, or I just keep the computer I have
Oh,
now.
that's a good point.
I would want to build a new computer, or at the very least upgrade my graphics card for some reason, probably what Kyle's gonna talk about for the next hour. And but like, it's just annoying to think that if I want an upgrade over what I have to spend at least $600, maybe more.
Yeah.
While a few years ago, it was more like, and by a few, I mean like 5. It was more like, oh, I bought a $250 graphics card, and now I can upgrade for $400 and get double the performance. Maybe that's just a progression of technology. Maybe it's just everything's getting that much better, that it's just slowly turning into 5 to 10% gains. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would echo that sentiment. I've noticed that it's so incremental these days that you always think, like, even with the graphics cards, it's like, what's the point of getting the next generation same tier card if it's going to be like 10% better performance, but it's going to cost $800? Like, what is the point anymore? And I found I'm starting to get specced out just from the fact that my PC build is so old. Like, everything else will just be the new bottleneck for me. So I think I'll probably have to start over and build from scratch. which is why I've been putting it off for so long because I'm scared of what is it going to be. I built that PC for $700. What's my next one going to be? Like $3,000 if I want something that can actually run modern games?
I mean,
If you want a top of the line-ish one,
I don't. I just want something that can run.
if you want like a mid, just
today's
it runs
stuff.
games well, I'd probably say $1,500.
Oh man, see that hurts.
but here's the thing: are you going to be playing new games, or are you going to be playing older games faster?
Well, that's a good point. I
Older
almost
games faster.
that's what I loved, man. When I first built my PC, I played LA Noire, which was already an ancient game, and it was like buttery smooth at high graphics, whatever that means. It's not very high graphics to begin with, but I was just like, oh wow, this is what gaming can be like. Of course, that was my first time like PC gaming on a PC, but I quickly realized that I would knock at that performance in games that even came out in 2015 or 16. So
What, 960?
right, it started as a 960 for the win, which was like the highest tier
960.
model of the 960. Now it's a 980 Ti, so
Oh yeah, the GPU I never gave back to
a
James.
little bit better, yeah. But I definitely noticed. I was
I
glad we
don't
could
think
run
he
the finals
misses it.
because
I don't
even
think-
just in my experience, we did try to play Halo Infinite recently, and it would not run on my PC
no.
at all.
The
Yeah.
finals ran better than Halo Infinite.
Yeah,
which
the
I
finals
thought
was
crazy.
great. I was actually really surprised. It must
Really?
be well optimized. Yeah.
I did not know.
On low settings, it ran perfect. I mean, 60 FPS.
Yeah, we played
which
that
is
last night.
which for that is my sync rate. So
You're
it's-
okay with 60
Yeah, yeah.
FPS.
That's the
That's
best
fine.
my monitor can do. So that's what I went for.
Yeah, I'm a high refresh rate guy. I will
Yeah.
never go back. I need my 144 minimum. I would prefer higher.
I guess that's my way of incremental upgrades. Is I'll just have to deal with all the peripherals too, like having a better monitor and then having like a
If
better
you're
mouse.
talking, well, okay, high refresh rate monitors are actually not that expensive. They're only like maybe $10 to $20 more than their lower refresh rate counterparts now.
I guess, yeah, but I'm so used to buying, old or like reused or stuff.
It's gonna be like the newest item in your house.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have like 5 or
Other
6
than your
monitors in my house
appliances,
that
maybe.
aren't from this decade.
Yeah.
I think even the ones I have might be like 2012 manufacturing date, but they still work. They're good, but they're not high refresh.
Well, Quentin, you brought up the topic. Where do you think? Actually, I'm cutting out. Kyle.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah. I'll go.
Tell us
last.
about
Go
AI.
ahead.
Okay, I have two different ones to talk about. The first one is where you're talking about like things in the future getting better and faster, which will happen, but also in like what way? It's like one of the questions. And for the vast majority of people, I don't really see much more improvement in terms of like physical processor efficiencies and whatnot. Like my dad, for example, he has an iPhone 10 and it does way more than he could ever want. And so he could upgrade to the 11, the 12, the 13, the 14, the 15. What does he
17,
gain
19,
from it?
21.
Eventually, yeah, right. But I really can't think of a single feature that the new ones have that would benefit him.
That's why I'm thinking it's going to be power efficiency for consumers.
That makes sense.
Efficiency. It's not going to be. Even then, they're already super efficient. But imagine not having to charge your phone for like a month. Like, wouldn't that be amazing?
I can imagine it, but that's about as far as that goes.
Man, that's how
Passing
they
thought.
used to be.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, when they didn't do anything.
They
Nobody
answered
called
phone-
you because nobody had a phone.
They answered phone calls and they
Yeah.
sent
That's it.
shitty text messages. You had to
Yeah.
press 3 times to get to the letter C.
Thank God my first phone had a sliding keyboard.
Oh yeah.
And we still use that same protocol to this day.
Yep.
SMS.
Hey, it ain't broke.
Yep. But however, I guess that's talking more about the hardware. When it comes to the software, that's where I think I see us moving forward having the huge beneficial gains. And so everyone is memeing of me bringing up AI because I truly think that like with the invention of large language models as well as like a lot of the other generative AI tech,
Diffusion, that similar stuff.
yep, creating images, creating text, editing
Videos even.
videos, yeah, absolutely. I think that's where we're going to get a lot more of the gains as a society, at least. But then eventually, as it goes forward and forward and forward, that's when it gets like existential, where it's like, okay, if computers can do more and more and more to the point where like now, if I have a task, I'd prefer an AI is handling it because I know the AI is going to get it right every time and think of things that like no one else could even possibly think of. When I hear a human has to do this task, I'm going to be like, oh boy, are they going to be okay? Like, am I going to be okay? Like, the humans doing this on my behalf? So, and then it morphs into a question of like, as a society, if we don't have white collar work anymore, how does that affect us? You know,
Do you really see that as a possibility though, where like all white collar work disappears?
I think I do see a possibility that 80% of white collar work does disappear.
Huh. That really surprises me. Just because, like, don't you think there's always cases where you're going to want a human involved? You might say no, though.
I think right now almost everyone's going to want a human involved. And I think that might be true for even the next 20 years.
Okay.
But
Well, you see it short-lived.
but 21 years is within our lifetime.
That's true.
And I think it's going to become more and more mainstream where people are like, oh,
You're going to go in for a CAT scan and they're going to give you the option, do you want a doctor to look at this or do you just want AI? And you'll be like, oh, AI, absolutely.
yeah, 100% actually. Because an AI, like an AI has the ability to pretty much scan every single patient that's ever had a similar problem throughout
Right.
all of history. Where a human doctor only has their like several years of life experience
Sure.
that they have, and plus what they've read in textbooks and gotten from like peers and peer reviews and whatnot.
Mhm.
So like to compare those two bodies of knowledge is like comparing an adult that knows tons about the world to like a child
Yeah.
that knows nothing.
That's
I mean,
fair.
it's not that the adults that have studied a particular thing, especially right now, are way better for sure than any AI like in the medical industry
Mm-hmm.
for a particular task.
And they're trying really hard to make an AI that can do medical stuff.
Oh, they already exist.
They're not good though. They're not as good as a human, like Kyle's saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends, right? Because like if you have one particular task that a human has studied for like their entire life,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to perform right now, outperform most AI systems. I don't see that being the case forever also.
Sure.
But when you go to somewhere and you have an issue, what is the likelihood that the doctor that you're talking to is the person that has studied your exact problem
Right.
for their entire life?
Probably very little.
Very low. Yeah.
Mhm.
So for me, I just think for sure in the future I'd much rather have an AI
Yeah.
handle my medical stuff, or
Yeah.
whether it be for most things. Also, like, when it comes to like project management, like it's going to get to the point where I think, okay, now, so to the future, right? We're talking about the
Yeah,
future,
yeah.
right? So
21 years from now.
21 plus years from now, we're getting into like, it's going to become hard to tell the difference, I think, between, a human biological system that you're talking to
Mhm.
versus a like artificial system that you're talking to.
Like
Some
Cortana.
Exactly, like from Halo, right? Not like Cortana, like actual Cortana.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
from
yeah.
Halo,
yeah.
not
From Halo.
the shitty AI from
Yeah,
The one from Microsoft,
I
not the one
forgot
from
that
Microsoft.
Microsoft. I forgot that Cortana was Microsoft Siri.
That's
or
okay, everyone else
Microsoft
did too.
Bixby. Yeah.
They named it that on purpose too. I'm
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
positive, right?
Yep.
And they used the same voice actress too.
Right.
Did they really?
Yeah.
I actually did
You
not
didn't know that?
I
She also voiced the female character from Left 4 Dead 1, Zoe.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that
she's
either.
same actress.
I don't know Left 4 Dead.
when
I
you're
probably can't run it. Oh.
You can, and we should play it. I
Okay,
love
okay.
Left 4 Dead.
yeah
It's
when
from 2009. You'll be fine.
Oh, okay. We're
I
good.
could run it on my MacBook.
Is that good?
Yeah.
All right.
with the cores we were just talking about, right? It's an x86
Yeah,
app.
yeah.
by
Oh no,
Mac,
I was
so-
able to run it on a Mac Mini. Like
Years
10.
back then when me
Back
and him
then.
play
Oh,
it
man.
together. Yeah.
Whoa.
Old school.
It was
That's
a light
fun.
game back when it came out. Anyway, back to your AI
Yeah.
talk.
Sorry.
I don't mean like I don't think there's going to be necessarily robots in the next 25 to 30 years
Mhm.
that like will look just like humans.
Like androids from Detroit become human.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's necessarily
Like
will be the case.
Westworld.
But I do think that, like, if you're speaking online to someone, which
Mhm.
most humans nowadays, I'd argue, kind of do speak mostly online to most people in their
Sure.
lives, aside from your family and close friends. But even close friends, honestly, spend all day on Discord with one another or whatever new hip social media,
FaceTime.
FaceTime, yeah, whatever your app of choice is. I think talking through those mechanisms, it'll be very difficult to tell if you're talking to, an artificial system versus a normal system. And so for a lot of work, like I'll just have an artificial system be my project manager for whatever X task
Sure.
is happening.
How do you do that though? Do you like set it up and be like, coach me to keep myself aligned with this goal or what?
There's quite a few different ways I can see that it can happen. And the answer is probably it's going to be many different mechanisms from different companies. They're all trying different ways.
Oh, so you think that's going to be the next like corporate competition is like AI
Who
wars?
could build the best AI?
I could see that. I think already we've seen a peak of it because when I guess Google had that leak that the guy was like, oh, I'm not going to know.
He claimed that
He claimed it was
Google's
sentient,
ChatGPT
right.
competitor was sentient.
He leaked some info basically, which was the big problem. But then everyone else saw that and they're like, oh no, we all need to release this now. And I feel like as just a flood all at once, everyone started releasing, oh, here's Facebook's AI, here's Bing's AI, here's everyone else's AI.
Yeah, well, I also think that Google engineer was nuts. So.
That Google
Yeah.
engineer was pre-GPT technology too.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, it was? I honestly,
pretty
in
certain.
my head, maybe it was Mandela effect. I thought that came out like when Google was
Wasn't it
developing their BARD.
Lambda?
That is possible, I suppose. What's that?
Wasn't it like Lambda, the name of the engine? I don't remember what it was, but it was not GPT.
I
Google has a few. There's
Okay.
Gemini, there's Bard. They have a couple.
Okay.
Gemini is the only one I've ever like used extensively.
Yeah, that one's the new one though. So, but I'm under the impression, for a long time, previous to a year and a half ago,
Mm-hmm.
people thought that anything related to like a ChatGPT like experience where you
Mhm.
can talk to a computer in natural language and it
Mhm.
responds somewhat coherently in natural language would be like an impossibility.
I agree wholeheartedly. I believed that. I have been blown away with what GPT does now, and like the way it like remembers things you say and like rephrases things. Like you can kind of coerce it into saying things, which I think is kind of weird, but it's like it can be very helpful for any problem you have. It blows me away. React development is what made me fall in love with AI, because I was just like, I go on Stack
It
Overflow
usually
and I
makes
can't
people
find.
lose faith in humanity.
Well,
What the heck?
let me tell you, I did lose faith in humanity and I became faithful to AI. The fact that I could just be like, all right, I don't know
Skynet we
why
trust.
I'm getting this error about a use effect hook showing up here, blah, blah, blah. Can you fix my problem? And it's like, oh, here's what you need to do. You just have to fix this. And I did, and it worked on the first try. And I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is it. This is now what being a developer should be like.
And it's so nice too because like when you have an issue, right now we just have a bunch of if statements in the compiler that tells you know what line is wrong and that there
Mhm.
is an issue there.
Right.
But then there's no analysis that happens on top of that.
Mhm.
Now it provides the ability to provide set analysis on top of it, but that's in like a nice scenario where you have a system, you can know a lot about the system and know what files are there, which gives it a lot like we call like that like context, right?
Mhm.
It gives these
Right.
AI models and methods context that it can then use to solve and issue us help.
It can know what you're trying to do just by
Correct.
looking at your code, even if it doesn't work.
Yeah, but suppose someone who doesn't know code is trying to do what you're trying to do and just has the AI.
Right.
It will be much more difficult for them because, like, speaking to an AI that's trying to write low-level code to make a large-level application with someone who doesn't even understand the fundamental basics would be almost an impossibility in
That's fair. Yeah.
today's landscape. But I think in tomorrow's landscape, it's possible that there will be systems that just are maintaining their own code base, and you just ask it, what do you want the app to do? And then it'll do it in its own code base, and then it'll show you the app, and it'll be like this. And then it's going to have probably multiple input methods, right? Like right now, we just mainly type through chat.
Right.
And also, like there's GPT-V now, where you can take a photo right now and upload it to ChatGPT and ask it
Okay.
questions about the photo. Like
Oh
I
my
could,
god, I've done that.
I want to do that.
I've drawn on a whiteboard. I want a website that looks like this. Use these technologies. I think I told it to do raw HTML with Bootstrap. Took a picture of it, sent it to GPT, and it did it.
Mm,
The website looked exactly how I imagined it in my head because I drew it on the whiteboard.
I love that.
But here's the thing: if I wouldn't have told it to use Bootstrap, if I wouldn't have told it to use raw HTML and CSS, I think it would have failed. I think because I gave it very specific requirements and the image, it did fine.
So it's
Now
all
that
and
about
also
prompt
he still had to
engineering.
assemble it after the fact. Like
Right.
I
I
gave him
still
the
had to
files.
copy and paste it, put it in
Sure.
the files, load it onto a web server, and I had to still do all that stuff.
But I
It
think
sounds like
all
you have to ask the right question, right? There's always some kind of
Yeah, which is where prompt engineering comes in, but
Yeah.
that's a whole nother can of worms.
But eventually, like it's abstractions on abstractions on abstractions.
yeah.
Right. So you can totally see that there could be a system where, like, all you have to provide is what you want the app to do that you're trying to make,
Mm-hmm.
and it does everything from there down. And maybe it's not. It might not just be one AI that just does it all in one shot. Like
Right.
is the big rage right now. It'll be a bunch of little AIs that each manage individual systems, and maybe a manager AI that manages those subsystems also that each talk to each other, or like more of an agent-like structure
Yeah.
possibly.
There's a few AI projects that are trying to do this now with ChatGPT and existing GPT tech, and it's not smart enough, is what we're figuring out very quickly. You either need a lot of small AIs that are really, really specialized, or you need a couple of big AIs that can do a set of tasks super well. It's very common now for example, Mixtral recently, like a few months ago, came out, and what Mixtral does is that it's 7 or 8 smaller AIs that are hyper trained on specific like fields. Like one is hyper trained on history, one is hyper trained on code, one is hyper trained on mathematics, and you combine all of them together into one giant AI that all runs simultaneously on the same system, and it automatically determines what AI it needs to send each question to. It does as good as ChatGPT, and it's fully open source.
Ooh.
Yeah. So they're thinking that behind the scenes is probably how GPT-4 and 5 are going to work. Where 4 currently does work, 5 might work.
I didn't even know there is a GPT-4. I guess that makes sense, right?
4 is what I use. I don't use 3 anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I quit using 3.
Me as well.
Is that what your bot uses?
No, that bot. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. My bot uses 3 because 3 is cheaper.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I've interacted
He
with
has
that one
bots
pretty
that use 4 also, though.
Yeah, I have written bots that use 4, and I can literally hit a switch and she'll be using 4.
Interesting.
The interface is the same. The only difference is I tell the API to use this model.
Can I just make an observation? I loved that this is like very much a moment in iRobot. I was like, I love that you said she. When you're talking about the AI, we're already getting to that point.
That's what I was like. In Skynet, we trust. I don't know if anybody heard me say that.
Yep, that's something that would never have happened 10
I
years
guess
ago.
I should give some context to why I called it she. Me and Kyle are trying to pitch it as like she has a personality.
Yeah.
She writes her own blog post.
She does
writes
have a
her own
personality.
Twitter.
She does have a personality.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's manufactured, I feel it. It's there.
So in about 10 years from now, she'll be my life as a teenage robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be selling them to every teenage boy in the country.
Oh.
Bad joke. Bad joke.
Going back to the
Yeah.
going back to like how will people interact with this though in the future, right? There will be people who just don't know what they're doing, will ask for an app to be a certain way, and probably those apps will
Right.
be made. However, there's also going to be people that are like, why do I as a human need to come up with the app ideas? Why don't I just have an AI robot app
Yeah.
Do
you know,
market
idea
research
person?
for me
Yeah.
and figure out what's going to make me money.
Decide what I should try to do with it.
And so like there
Now
will be
human existence is null and void. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't
there you
matter. You don't
Well,
need to exist. Because the AI can just buy the program now.
Yeah, there you go.
there's gonna be like a spectrum though, like from like complete automation where every single step is automated and does each task itself, or like outsources it to other also AI systems that does tasks, to like tools for like people who want to be more in the weeds that have more of like a very specific custom thing they want to do, to like there's definitely going to be people that 20 years from now are like, man, everyone around me does talk about AI and AI is everywhere, but like I've never bothered to learn it because I
Yeah.
do this thing that I don't need AI for, and I've done it my entire life, and it works.
That's like the boomer mentality now. Why do I need the internet? I've lived my whole life without the internet. I don't see any reason to do it.
There's going to be a lot of people that fall behind, and
Yeah.
as long as you are not one of those people, you'll be fine.
I mean, there are certain cases where like
It's probably fine. For
it's
some
probably
people.
fine
Yeah.
for a lot of people, but
I can see my dad never caring to learn about
Yeah,
AI. He
that's-
doesn't care.
Yeah.
He'll
and-
never use it.
And that's same probably from, well, my dad uses ChatGPT, so I can't say anything for him. But my dad used it to cook.
Oh, see, that's rare. I think that's
Yeah.
like a 1% of that age range.
He thinks it's fun. To
Yeah.
have it come up with recipes and cook with it.
I think there's going to be infinite uses. It's just whether or not
I
you
asked
as a
him
person
if-
want to accept them.
I told him you should try to have it come up with chemical compounds at work, and he's like, I'm not allowed to do
It
that.
it does that already. Have you seen? Maybe I don't know if you've seen this, but that has been one of the kind of scary realities of AI is that we're using it. We as a human society, not us personally, have been using it to identify compounds that might be like causing people to be sick, which might be toxic. But as a result, it's like, well, then you have to be worried about what happens when this thing does find chemicals that are poison. Now
When
you
the
basically
terrorists or
you've got a
someone bad.
bioweapon generator. So it's like, well, that's the same. I guess you could mention that for all uses of AI. There can be good and bad. It's really just how the person
That's
uses
just
it.
technology in general, though.
Right.
That's like, NSFW, I guess, here. There are people that are using it to make pornography,
Yes.
like actual videos.
Wait, what?
Yeah. There are people that are using it to make actual videos.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Shout out
and-
to Taylor Swift.
Oh,
and there's
yeah.
and there's people like girls in college that have these videos that are sent to them where
Or
AI
they're deepfaked onto, like, a
they're
porn
deep
star.
faked.
Yeah.
Mm.
and they feel like they said that they feel like they're watching themselves have sex with somebody, and it's not exactly a comfortable feeling for them.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just like where does the legality, I guess, fall there?
Mm.
The short answer is it's probably not legal because your likeness can be copyrighted.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if your likeness
You want to
is
go
used.
from like a corporate, like I am corporate nerd thing, like Disney. It is illegal as hell. to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that
yeah.
from a
That's very
copyright.
American. You
Now-
have your right to your likeness.
Yeah, you have a
Yeah.
right to your likeness. Now that being said, things like that are terrible, and that is not what AI should be used for. Like you should
Ooh.
not use, and not like you shouldn't use it to generate like art and generate content. I'm fine with that as long as you're not like one that is very malicious. Obviously, there's a very obviously malicious intent
Right.
on their parts, and you shouldn't be using tech for that. I mean, but you're not going to stop everyone.
it's the first use case for almost all tech, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the internet is 33.3% porn or something like that.
Yeah. I think
You're
it's
off by
actually decreased now over
67%.
time, but
It used to be 50. I think it is more like a third now.
So you're telling me I haven't seen 60% of the internet? Go ahead.
I think it's easy to always think about the negative ways to do it, but what really scares me is like, AI right now is still basically just a tool, and you can misuse any kind of tool. What I'm worried about is if we're going to get to the point where the legality actually catches up and you do have people making laws that pigeonhole the use of AI into strict, like, regulated ways.
Which is a little scary to me too, because as someone who works with AI and is trying to get into AI as an industry, it's very terrifying that we could get regulated into the ground to the point where we're not allowed to use it anymore. Someone brought up, I don't know what country mentioned this. Maybe it might have been U.S. Congress. I'll have to look into it more. This is all I know. Someone mentioned that, maybe one day there'll be an AI law that basically bars any company that makes more than X amount of dollars from using it.
Interesting.
Where they use the AI as a way for the little guys to catch up, but if you're a big corporation, you're not allowed to touch it.
I don't even know how I feel about that either, because I think about all the things AI can do at this point. I mean, do you really want to go for the like big ticket item at the store, but it's not going to have AI power because they're not allowed? This is.
Well, they mean from a labor perspective, I think is what they were trying to point out. They're trying to say replacing employees with AI. I mean, I think Kyle's right. That's like 20 years away, I think, from a realistic perspective. Obviously, there already have been, I know you're going to say there have been instances where people have been fired because of AI.
Yeah, I only say 20 years out of respect to like what most people's opinions are. My own personal opinion is that it's a much shorter time horizon than that. But
yeah, my opinions are more like 10 to 20, like he said. I still think there have been people who have been laid off because of AI recently, like in the last year, which is obviously terrible, but technology, like think about how many people got laid off whenever cars, like we built the U.S. highway system.
Yeah. I was even thinking that on my way here, how frustrated I was with the toll booth. I'm just like, if this was all robots and automated, is everyone going to be like, I missed my job as a toll booth operator. Now they just don't employ people. Nobody, I mean, that's not like a luxurious job, right? I don't know.
But I guess I'm more thinking about like, if we want to go back in time again, like whenever the U.S. highway system opened up, as well as whenever air travel started becoming mainstream, the trains went in the toilet, especially here in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how technology progresses. People will lose their jobs. I don't know if that's a hot take or not. Is that a hot take?
I think it's a very realistic take.
I think it's a very realistic
There's
take.
There's a good chance that I'm going to lose my job in the next 20 years to the AI program.
I think we're looking at it at a much larger scale than in the past, though.
I mean, historically, people have always said, like, when the car came around, like, what happens to all the horses? And when automation happens, what happens to all the jobs that are lost then? And the answer before was, they'll go get new jobs. There's almost an infinite amount of potential for humanity to grow. There's other things for them to do. And I think that so far in history, that has been the case.
Right.
I think this is one of the first cases where, at least from a white-collar perspective in the short term, which is defined as, next 20 years, it's the first time when something gets automated, the new job that it creates can also be automated. And the new job that creates can also be automated from a white-collar perspective. When it comes to like robotics and stuff, I do think that is also all automatable, but I think there's going to be a lag time just because physically making the robots, there's a large
cheap
cost
enough
to that.
And a cost benefit.
Right. Because like if you look at like the distribution of like the widespread adoption of like how fast things are adopted, when you see like ChatGPT, it's released in like October, and then 1 month later, it has a ridiculous amount of users.
It was the fastest growing app in history.
Yeah. And the reason why, though, is because the architecture and infrastructure for that is already there. So for it to scale and get to everyone was stupid simple. However,
it still had scaling problems.
and still had scaling problems, but like still, like in 1 month, it has.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like 1 million monthly active users, 10 million monthly active users. Now it's up to 100 million monthly active users and growing. So
growing much slower. I should remind you.
In percentage, maybe, but if you
I mean in percentage, yeah. Its growth rate is fairly constant, is what they've noticed. But the thing is that it's still like a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right. But if you look at, for example, like electricity, when we're trying to get electricity all across the United States, like it takes a lot to get electricity, like the electric infrastructure in place for buildings to have, electricity.
Yeah, it took decades.
And so because I think the equivalent here is that the things that can be automated in software, which is most white collar work, that stuff can happen pretty much as soon as that tech is invented, where the technology that is more related to hardware, being robotics and whatnot, it needs to both be invented and there needs to be an industrial aspect where it's like, manufactured at scale and distributed. So that's why I think that'll lag by 5 years. But then it becomes like, okay, well now that's blue collar work,
Yeah, right.
you know, automated in some way. So it's like, okay, now white collar work's automated, blue collar work's automated. What do humans do? I know what my answer is, what I think will happen, but again, it's just speculation because now we're in so far in the future where I see that things can definitely go in that way. And that's why my predictions are that. But as far as how we react as a society, that's
Talking about
also
like a
could be.
dystopian.
I personally have a utopian view.
Yeah, I
think
don't see that as dystopia at all, actually.
I think that humans will start to do what they want to do. Like a lot of people just
Yeah.
see Wall-E, like, and they are like, oh, we're just gonna be fat people and be miserable all the time. But I think that humans will do what they want to do. There are people who want to play basketball all day, and they're gonna go and they're gonna be super fit and like destroy. And there are other people who are gonna sit down and play every single Legend of Zelda game back to back to back to back. And as soon as they finish one, a new one is finished generating. They're going to go in on that
A
game, the next
never-ending
game, the next game.
story.
Exactly. So.
Okay.
But then also, there's going to be other interesting fragments through society because imagine your perfect video game for you. It can automatically now be generated, and you're going to experience this amazing story.
It doesn't
That's
matter
a-
if it's multiplayer because they just have a bunch of AI bots
Yeah.
playing against you that are as good as real players.
Make the bots 15% worse than me. All right, great.
And that's a great experience for you. Although we're going to lose something that we've historically had, which is this amazing game that's awesome for you. You're going to go, hey, Chandler, check out this awesome game. And Chandler's like, I'm already experiencing my own awesome game that's been tailored just for me. So it's like we're going to lose some of that shareability because everyone can have their own exact tailored experience that they want.
Okay.
AI is tearing us apart.
But also, like, is it good or is it bad? Because it's good because you're getting like
Right.
your perfect experience. But
Huh.
it's bad because you're losing some of that shareability aspect. But then it's
Right.
good because there are AIs that you can share it with now.
Sure.
So
What are your thoughts on having an AI as a friend? Totally good.
I personally am very pro. I think it's great. As someone who, when I communicate with something digitally, if I'm not able to tell it's a human
Mm-hmm.
versus an AI, and it turns out it is an AI, I think it's fine personally.
I'm here for it.
But at what point do we get to like an uncanny valley sort of?
I think we're already past it in terms of just text. Do you think? I mean, have there ever been things when you're talking to a AI that you're like, oh, that was super awkward?
There have been, but it happens less and less. The biggest ones is like over long courses of action when it like runs out of what's called like token length, or it's
Runs out of context.
runs out of context.
That's funny. Buffer overflow.
Yeah, buffer overflow. It can be a little weird. There. I think with the technology we have today, we can orchestrate systems that would fix that. We just haven't because
It's too expensive or too time consuming.
I think it's just that there are other
not
things
there
that we
yet.
can automate first that will make more money.
Mm.
Is the reason. Because like I can try using AI in a business endeavor and like get a sizable return for my company,
Right.
or I can try to just make an AI human friend just for the sake of an AI human friend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there probably are companies out there that are trying to make AI human friends.
I've
as a
Have
already
you
service.
seen all the ads for them on like the Play Store? And oh, you don't have YouTube. You have YouTube Premium. so you see ads.
Yeah,
But like
really
I
watch
see,
ads, so-
I will scroll through because I'll scroll through YouTube and I don't have YouTube Premium, and like at least half the ads I see are for AI girlfriends.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Really?
Yeah, that's actually really popular.
Yeah, which it horrifies my wife.
Why?
it's like you're gonna
Is she
leave
insecure
me.
about it?
She's just like, you're not. Am I that bad? Like,
That's awesome.
But at the same time, you do need a physical connection with people.
yeah. Which what is it? It's like 80% of couples meet on the internet now, or something like that. I
Oh
read.
yeah, I believe that.
Now AI will find your perfect match.
Fuck you.
God willing.
The
She
la-
might be a robot.
The last girl I met online, and that did not work out well.
Well,
There is another thing that'll ripple through society though, relating to this in the future, I think, and that's that when anything can be created, very similar to what you're talking about with deep fakes used in a malicious manner,
Mm-hmm.
with AI porn, for example, I think that it's not just going to be pornographic in nature. It's going to be any piece of content. You don't know now if a video that you see of someone saying something is real or fake.
AI influence is already a thing.
Where it's a digital human that doesn't exist,
Yeah.
and they
And some
Have their own
guy
delay.
in a room somewhere is making $10,000 a month off of an OnlyFans that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say it was kind of a joke, but you did use 11 Labs to make that Joe Biden script, and I remember like when they first had
Okay,
the
maybe
oh,
don't say that because that's against TOS. But okay, continue.
okay, that's fine. I remember when they first had the like, oh, here's Joe Biden and Donald Trump in Minecraft, and it was like bad. You know, the cadence was awkward. Sometimes the pronunciation just didn't make sense. That one was like pretty good.
Actually, I think it's allowed if it's for memes. I think it's explicit.
It was a meme. It was a meme. What's
It was a
come
meme.
on?
It was a meme. So
But I mean, I was surprised. I was just like, whoa, this has been like less than a year already, and it's like, it's a lot better. It's not perfect by all means, but it's a lot better, and that makes me realize it's probably not going to be much more than another year until it's like impossible to tell for people with lots of data. Celebrities, presidents, whatever.
yeah.
That's going to be scary.
But I think like
Oh, want to hear something else crazy about that clip though? There
Yeah.
was a minute of Joe Biden speaking. I used to train that AI.
yeah,
Did it not have anything else, really?
No,
nothing else.
Nothing else.
Oh, yeah. Then that's scary because I assumed it just had a big mind of everything he's ever said.
No.
There's been, I don't know if it was real. Haley told me about it. She saw it on Facebook of someone deep faked their daughter. And apparently their daughter had a bunch of, like, she had a bunch of Instagram video posts and everything. She had a social media presence. And some malicious actor deep faked that girl and called the girl's mother and convinced the girl's mother to send a bunch of money to some random Cash App to save their daughter.
Oof.
I'm pretty certain this is real. I've seen several people report that like their parents have
Yeah.
been hit with
Oh, man.
Yeah. Especially with people who have large social media presences.
even small social media presences. You just need one video with 1 minute of talking.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're fucked is what I'm hearing.
Now,
That's
now
what
we
I'm saying.
finally got to give
Yeah.
Ian some props for basically disappearing on the internet, huh?
Even though we accidentally made him the face of the company.
Yeah, well, good thing there's not any long amounts of Ian talking anywhere on the internet.
Or us right now.
yeah, exactly.
But I do think that there are a couple of solutions that can be put in place and that will be put in place. There's definitely going to be a large amount of time where there's going to be a mismatch where it's going to be a free for all though.
Yeah,
But like one
And we're
example,
in that time now.
it's like the early internet. Honestly, I feel that.
yeah, I would say we aren't quite in that time. I think we're going to get in that time this year when it comes to probably the presidential election.
Yeah.
I think that tends to be like a very driving factor between like using current tech to do something to
Yeah.
for some form of game. And I really do think though like there can be technologies that are built where you can prove like, oh, this video was filmed on a camera and you can tell because it's signed in the way that, Apple makes this iPhone that has a camera. You record a video, Apple can make a codec that can show, okay, this
Signs
video,
the-
Right.
signs the
Digital watermarking. I've seen that. They even do it on some printers, which I never knew. Almost all printers will have like a very faint pattern that's a unique pattern that.
But they're
you
going
can
to
tell
end up
which
having to
printer
do
came
that
from.
with like content now.
That's what I wonder. Is that really where we're going? Where everything's
like,
going to be digitally watermarked?
traditionally in these files, there's some metadata and it's primarily like just the video file, right? But I think what's going to happen is it's going to be like the video file will be formed with a cryptographic key that's like then signed with a device. And then
Wow.
like when you share that file with someone, like if it gets edited, it'll probably like append that to some cryptographic chain. So you can see like how many times it was opened
Blockchain
and edited.
video.
Yeah, I was about to say that like a
Oh, no.
blockchain.
Like a blockchain.
Hey,
yes.
I've heard of that.
But like one of the big things relating to blockchain as a technology versus like as NFT or actual like cryptocurrencies, which is what they're traditionally known for, is it can be used in a distributed manner to be able to identify something that's happening in a distributed system.
Thank you for validating my career choices.
right.
But yeah, it's like a data structure, and so we can utilize this, but it's going to take a long time for the masses to understand like, oh, exists now this file type that I can be able to tell, like someone's going to there needs to be like built in to social media, like where you can like click a button and check like where this came from. Is this a legit filmed on iPhone video or not? So like you're going to need those mechanisms in place and it's going to be a while.
Mhm.
And in the interim, anyone will be able to say anything.
Yeah, that's what I basically heard. The general consensus on the internet is like we're already sort of there, but definitely quickly approaching the point where it's just going to be impossible to tell, and any digital watermarking we can come up with now is probably just going to be able to be faked, which is just like,
That's why you need like some form of blockchain like
Right,
built into the
right,
file
exactly.
type, basically.
are we going to get to the point where it's just like we have to be skeptical of everything, or are we going to have
I
a
already
log
am
of
skeptical.
everything?
Like I always hear like my parents tell me things that they heard on Facebook or whatever.
Oh,
Like, if you heard it
geez,
on
yeah.
Facebook, I'm already
yeah.
not like I already don't believe it
That's
at
like-
all.
That's like my folks believe that the Earth is flat,
Yeah, it is.
but their source is TikTok.
Okay, that's not a
Okay,
good
yeah.
source.
Yeah.
I'm going to argue that most social media is not a good source
Any
for
platform
I
isn't a
disagree
source.
with that blanket statement.
what?
Platforms aren't
I've
sources.
used social media to learn lots of things that were very true.
Okay,
For example,
that's fine.
learning how to use React, for example.
Okay,
right?
yeah, but
Programming.
when it comes to things that are opinion or politics based, it becomes very like I guess the Earth being flat is not an opinion, but still, like there are many things.
Right,
that
it's a fact.
it's a
It's
wrong
just
opinion.
true. It's
And
just true to anyone who believes it.
Man, we have many believers around the globe.
I always love that one.
that's the best line out of them.
Go ahead.
I think it's like always. I don't know if anyone else. Maybe you guys can enlighten me on this. In English class in 7th grade, we had an entire like section on establishing credibility in the context of writers.
Oh yeah, we had that. Oh my gosh.
But it was like currency. Was this published yesterday or in 1965? Is this an author you know about? Are they getting paid to give you this information? Like, what do they do? Why do they? Does anyone do that anymore? Like critical thinking or anything? Because
apparently not, and I tend to try to do that when I'm on social media. Because like if I see something a lot, like when I say a lot, I mean like that's all the feed is about. Then maybe I can say, okay, maybe there's some truth to some of the stuff. All right, fine. Maybe I'll go verify it on a few other sources. But if I see a video of a woman being an idiot and someone tells me that, oh, this is a real video of AOC, and I'm like, one, that's obviously a deep fake, and two, where are you? And it's just the same viral video that's been passed around a few dozen times and not a ton of different media sources about it, I'm going to assume it's fake.
yeah,
Especially if it obviously looks like a deep fake, and I had to tell my boomer parents that is a deep fake.
it sounds like personal experience.
The problem is
Yeah.
that you can say that now, but it's in the very near future. It's gonna get easier and easier for people to make
think
realistic deepfakes.
Luckily, I think especially me and you, Kyle, have a bit of an edge that we're probably going to be one of the few people that can tell up until like right at the end is whenever we're going to quit being able to tell at the end of the technology chain, because you and I work with AI daily.
You and I have different definitions of what at the very end is. I think that your definition right there of at the very end is very soon.
You think like before the end of this year?
I'm not gonna get into specifics within the next 10 years. I'll say for sure.
Okay.
I personally think it's possible
There
for
will
it to
be a
be
day
by
that's
the end of
even
next year, but
Yeah.
I look
We'll
forward
see.
to the day where AI doesn't like produce text that reeks of just like formulaic
That is
generated.
actually partially done on purpose with ChatGPT. You know that, right?
yeah.
Is that
That is
so?
partially intentional. So that
During
way
the
people-
RLHF reinforcement learning for human feedback
Uh-huh.
loop, they basically put this AI through a boot camp of this is how you should behave. Given these questions,
This
this
is how
you
we
should
talk?
respond. Yes, this is how you need to talk.
how
Oh.
it needs to talk, not humans.
You know what? To be fair, though, I always think that, speaking of, 7th grade English class, when they'd be like, all right, so your topic statement is what you're talking about, and then you have 3, points you say, and then you restate, and there would be people for their conclusion that would just be like, in conclusion, and then they just restate exactly what they, like word for word, what they said in their introduction. It was like, okay, well, not quite that formulaic, like maybe mix it up a little bit, but now I'm realizing that's exactly what AI was taught to do, right? Just be very formulaic and do exactly as you do, you're told.
Not just that, but there are tools that can like try to. I've heard a lot of the AI tools that are supposed to market as ChatGPT or not. Apparently, a lot of them are basically just guessing.
Yeah, I believe that.
But a human can look at text and be like, "Yeah, this sounds like AI."
Mm-hmm.
But we don't. Know
I saw
for
this
sure.
teacher, like, I'm scrolling through a TikTok equivalent, just as everyone does, right? And this teacher is like, teachers, I've got you, okay? Like, in your assignments, you're going to tell the students, paragraph 1, what they need to write about, space, paragraph 2, what you need to write about. Now, in between the paragraphs, you're going to tell it to constantly use the word turkey. And you're going to take that and you're going to make it white. So that way when the students copy and paste this into ChatGPT, in the output, it's going to say turkey quite a few times throughout it. So that way, like the produced essay, that you read, you just look for turkey and then you know if they use ChatGPT or not.
The thing is,
Actual
that
advice from
Whoa.
a teacher online.
I think that a student would notice that, right?
There's a lot of students that will just like take it, Control
Copy,
C,
paste,
Control
Control
V,
V, enter.
enter,
Wow.
take it. Just
You know what? I
you don't
should've
remember
known.
being a dumb student?
Sorry, can't relate.
I'm with Alex. Can't relate.
I did at least try.
I tried getting around the rules.
Yeah, but you're gonna mess up a couple times before you like. Okay, never mind.
did
Maybe
mess
I'm the
up
only
a few
dumb one. It's okay.
Well,
It's okay.
I just wasn't privileged enough to have. If I had ChatGPT, you bet I would. And I even heard him talking about this.
You
on the
haven't
news.
had
They were
a
talking
time
about,
where
like,
they told you not to use Google, for example, and instead just only write something by yourself.
I don't think I've ever quite been that confined in a writing
told them
assignment,
not
but I
use
love writing, so that was never a problem for me. I love that.
That's fair. I didn't like doing
I
writing.
was told
Okay.
to never to not use Wikipedia. Wikipedia isn't a good
I
source.
think that's a perfect example, and I would use Wikipedia because I'm lazy, right? So
Okay.
Even though Wikipedia is actually probably one of the better sources on the internet for information now.
I would just
'Cause
like
I
append
mean,
to my
it does
search
get
in
scrubbed.
url.org or something.
Well, it's moderated now. It didn't used
Yeah,
to be moderated.
that's what I meant. It's moderated. It got scrubbed of all the
Garbage. There are still people. Like,
garbage.
I saw a joke the other day about how fast Wikipedia editors are. It was just like, wow, they died 10 minutes ago. The Wikipedia page is already up to date.
Was.
Control F was.
Yep, they're good at that. I always notice that when I look up, I'm like, oh, a celebrity died, and then I see it's just was. I'm like, who's waiting to do this?
I bet you they already have it written. They just got as soon as the news drops, they just have to hit a button. It's
Yep,
converted.
yep, we got the news in. Update Wikipedia.
It's probably an algorithm that does it. Like it's probably a program that does it automatically. They don't have them all queued up.
There's
too
a
much
job we can
information
lose.
on Wikipedia.
That's okay if that gets replaced by AI, right? Is there the guy who always updates Wikipedia from is to was? That could be automated.
That could be automated today.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be that hard.
In the shorter term, though, moving forward, I guess one other thing I didn't mention that I do think is going to happen is there's a lot more like smart devices
Oh yeah,
and like everything.
Here's where my line is: I will not have these in my house.
I already do, and I'm here for it.
And I think like most people don't like go out of their way, quote unquote, to get smart devices necessarily, but when they need something, then they go and they upgrade, right?
Mhm.
And we're still in like these devices either like are like just being invented right now or have been invented in the last 10 years.
Are you referring to like smart appliances, or like are you including
Yeah,
a smartphone
appliances.
in
Like
this?
almost everyone has a smartphone, so I guess I was talking about not smartphone.
Appliances and like household items.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey microwave, reheat my coffee.
So I think like
No, it sends you a text message to your phone. Just
Yeah, even
ding.
better.
Yeah.
a lot more of that will like start to transition into more and more households. So I definitely think that that's going to happen. So
One of my family member of mine argued that they're only doing that because they're making us do that, and I bet you Ian would argue the same thing. They're making us transition to smart devices. They're just gonna quit. They're just gonna quit manufacturing the dumb ones.
let's yell at him. Ian, yay or nay?
Ian's behind the camera.
Just thumbs up or thumbs down. We'll tell everyone.
Yes, he says yes.
There it is. If I keep hitting that, but
All I'm waiting for is that GPT is finally going to enter into my Google Assistant. I'm so tired of asking what should be a simple query and getting
so
the
true.
wrong answer. Sorry, I didn't understand that. Or I'm just like, hey, what song
Apparently,
is this?
that's gonna be like Apple's next gen of Siri too.
I
Have
just-
GPT
It's
text.
so embarrassing
excited.
sometimes. I'll have to be like, I have to carefully measure my sentence I say to it before I do to make sure that it's going to be easily parsed by it. I'm just like, oh, come on. We have the technology. Please.
We do. And
Upgrade my devices, please.
It's usually good enough for like most people.
Yeah, that's
these
what I'm
giant
looking
corporations
forward
are just
to.
a little afraid because so new tech and not.
Yeah, it makes
like,
sense.
We don't.
There's very few moderation tools built
Yes,
in.
that's it.
Yeah, they don't want like another one of those articles where it's like Alexa told my kid to kill himself. you know?
Yeah. We know what the internet can do.
When in reality the kid gaslit it. Oh, I'm sorry, that was
Yeah.
horrible.
Jesus.
Whoa.
Yeah. Okay. / AI rant. Quentin, what do you think?
So I kind of agree. I'm gonna kind of bring mine back down and kind of more generalized, I guess. More like quality of life, like smart appliances. Like you're gonna be able to say like already you can say Alexa, turn my lights on.
Sorry if you have an Alexa. in there.
I'm not.
Hey Google. Sorry.
Never mind.
Um,
Hate when they do that. I hate it. Stop it.
like automatic opening doors. We joked about it a long time ago. Heated dresser drawers. I guess automatic folding laundry in your dryer. Self-driving cars are going to become more and more common than they are.
Don't get him started on Tesla either.
I'm just saying with Tesla.
Another day.
And then like Elon Musk is working on it, commercial space flight. He's working on Virgin Galactic is also working on commercial space flight.
I heard news about that. I thought they're like closing down.
Yeah, I thought they went bankrupt. Is that
Oh,
true?
okay.
I don't know.
They tried at least.
Okay.
If they are, well, maybe they're still up and
Yep.
running.
Let's go. Bezos will fill in that.
Got an
gap.
opening, yeah.
Amazon Basics.
Oh god.
Oh God, no! Blue
Do
Origin
not
is now
get in
Amazon
there.
Basic
Yeah.
Space.
And then what else was I going to say? Neuralink, like Cyberpunk, I guess. Not exactly as dystopian as
Right now, it
Cyberpunk.
only goes one direction. It only goes out of your brain, not into your brain.
Yeah.
Good.
But I feel like people are going to be able to interface with things more. Like whenever you watched Futurama, the episode where they had the iPhones, they were quite literally iPhones where they put them in your eye and you could interact with your phone just by blinking or looking at something or thinking that that's what you wanted to do. I feel like that's going to be more or less, we're going to have more integration with technology from a more personal and like biological standpoint. And it's going to be a more quality of life change. And I can see it go either way of either a utopian way or a dystopian. Obviously, there's going to be some dystopian because there's always going to be people that have malicious intent.
Yeah.
But there's going to be people that also are wanting to better the world and better things.
100%. And dear viewer, do you think that we're gonna do you think the future is gonna be more utopian or dystopian?
Please leave a comment below.
That's it this time.
Bye. We'll
Sorry.
see you at the
Thanks.
next one.
Sorry if we made you depressed.
No. It's all about your perspective. It's going to be fine.
Totally not a pain smile.